After winning the war, Washington did what victorious leaders rarely did at the time. He voluntarily gave up power. Many would have gladly made George Washington the king of America. Yet all he wanted to do was return here to Mount Vernon and to be with his loving wife, Martha.
That was former President George W. Bush in 2007, marking President's Day with a visit to Mount Vernon, Virginia, the home of the country's first president, George Washington. Banks, post offices, government offices, public schools, and the stock market will all be closed in honor of President's Day, which is today. It's also the perfect excuse for us to talk more about why we celebrate this day in the first place with presidential historian and executive director of the George Washington Presidential Library, Lindsay Chervinsky. You know the Mount Vernon area where the president was speaking quite well. You've also given me great tours of it. It's beautiful. Everyone should go. But let's talk a little bit about the history of this day and why we celebrate it in the first place, because there's remembering presidents and then there's the larger shadow that they cast over this country, both now and when we look back at them, right? So talk to us about why this day matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the holiday actually started really early on when people were celebrating Washington's life while he was still alive. So
weird.
It is a little bit odd. And when, I think he probably felt it was a little weird too. He attended a couple of birthday balls at Gadsby's Tavern just across the river in Alexandria. And there was certainly a sense that this was a remarkable person that deserved to be celebrated. But there were already questions in the 1790s about when do you celebrate the office and when do you celebrate the person? Now, the celebrations for Washington continued, and after the Civil War, people started to ask, well, should we add a Lincoln to this list? Because he, of course, was a remarkable president. But the holiday that was created legally in 1885 for the nation is actually Washington's birthday. It's not about all of the presidents. We've just kind of lumped them in there. And that's largely actually an advertising ploy to get people to buy stuff for President's Day.
Right. Not that we need any excuse with a sale. But at the same time, when you talk about separating the office from the presidency, or rather the office from the person, it does feel like those things are so mushed right now in the public consciousness because of the way that Trump himself has sort of refashioned the presidency and the role of a president within it. I think that's a fascinating thing for us to reflect on as we head into a day like today. But then also the way that you and I have talked about this over the years. Last year we were saying, rather you were, that this day is a little bit silly. I think it got taken way out of context. But as you reflect on it now, what do you see in the importance or not of celebrating President's Day?
Well, I think it's interesting the clip you started with, George W. Bush. He's at Mount Vernon. Obviously, we agree that everyone should go to Mount Vernon on President's Day.
Duh.
It is free today, so anyone who wants to come, please do come visit us. And that makes sense to me, to celebrate great presidents, to celebrate Washington, to celebrate Lincoln, to celebrate Theodore Roosevelt and Dwight Eisenhower. Yeah. These men did amazing things, and those amazing things deserve to be remembered. But Millard Fillmore, John Tyler, James Buchanan, these are not the Washingtons and the Lincolns. And so I think today is a really great opportunity to think about, where has the presidency, where did it start? Where has it gone? How has it evolved? And where do we as citizens want it to go? Because it's the only office that represents all Americans, and therefore we have a say in what we want it to be and how we want it to represent us.
You're also talking about some of the greatest people to get elected, and not all of them can be the greatest of the greatest, right? We have a certain few that occupy that space. And this is now coming on the 250th anniversary of our country. You and I talk a lot about the various parallels and things that are important as we reflect on that moment. Does that make this President's Day interesting, different, new to you?
Well, I think it's a good reminder of, how long we have been a nation. And in this moment, as we're thinking about those celebrations, as we're thinking about those anniversaries, they're not by accident. Yeah. They take generations after generations of commitment to upholding the republic, to upholding our institutions, and recommitting to this glorious experiment. And so I think the great men that we have celebrated are ones that were committed to that experiment. And it's maybe a charge to us to recommit ourselves today.
To commit ourselves really to the moral underpinnings and the great ideas that underpin this great country. Presidential historian and executive director of the George Washington Presidential Library, truly one of the best, Dr. Lindsay Chervinsky, thank you for coming on.